Hello folks, welcome to the weekly chart review. I'm doing this a day later just because of weekend festivities, so didn't really miss much, I hope. Alright, let's just dive right in. I'm going to make this one a little bit quick. I highlighted already pairs that I'm going to go over based on what I saw that was interesting. I'll do oil. I've been actually taking some oil trades over the last week, and they've worked out quite well. Like, it became pretty predictable. Okay, as far as the forex goes, we'll jump in it quickly, right? So AUD CAD, for example, it did go up, and this was already over a week ago, right? So I already said last week that this should have been a break-even trade, right? Like when you're at least 140 pips in profit, there's no reason why you shouldn't be moving stop loss to break even at that point. So yeah, I mean, trades over and done with. That one's done. That prediction isn't going to come to pass. The reason I say that is because Canadian dollar just kind of destroyed AUD right now. Okay, so this is what we have going on daily. On the 4 hour, there's really, as far as, man, I hate when my chart just kind of does a little screwy thing like that. Anyway, so on the 4 hour time frame, I don't really see a strong point of entry. There's been a lot of consolidation over the last several days, weeks in fact, actually. It just finally broke through this purple line that I had drawn, being the fib channel. Now it is slowly starting to come back up. I believe there will be a rejection from here going lower. It seems fair to say, just because that is exactly how it's been playing out, right? So let's say, for example, we take AUD CAD, we draw fib from top to bottom. You see that it was just like, I'll even draw it all the way across, right? So we have a good example of this. So it hit 618 several times. It consolidated through there for weeks, 1 week, dropped down, made a new low, came back up to its previous 618. Even if we draw the chart all the way to the bottom here, right? So from high to low, it just hit that 618 again, but it didn't break past the previous. So that would have been a good indication to take a sell. Okay. Now that we've kind of hit this area, bounced up, and started breaking right through it, this is what I predict for the next move, right? So since this was the last impulse move up, draw fib to there, I'm going to be looking for something around here to take as a sell. As you can see, even if I take the volume and I go from that high to, let's say, this lowest point, the majority of it, the volume is hanging around between 786 and 886 on the fib. I just don't see it pulling up that high this time. I have a feeling it's going to come to this extreme zone instead, not as high. Even it might barely just cross that purple. Like if we just get a play off this blue line right here, that 328, this is a good sign of a strong continuation. So, I'm not entirely sure on this one. I would be watching for EMA shifts. That would be the best point of entry, right? So let's say, for example, the sell would be off this purple line here. A stop loss maybe just about 50 pips, I guess, would be reasonable. And I can see this dropping all the way down to the red, right? So potential 5-to-1 on this trade. But again, I'm looking for EMA switch, right? I'm not going to be getting right there just because I'm not entirely certain of this move. Okay, so we'll keep it green just to keep an eye on it. But yeah, that's as far as I can see on AUD CAD. CAD will be the stronger pair. AUD CHF, we talked about this last week already. Lots of volatility through that line. It's too bad it worked out the way it did. But if, possible way to snag it on the way down here, right? Because again, if you caught the entry there, pulled right back up, and it would have just triggered a stop loss, unfortunately, right? And then it dropped in, so the second time around would have been a break even, and the third time around breaking through it was money, right? Unfortunately, For me, it would have been that first entry that knocked it out. And typically, when I get knocked out of a trade first, I don't want to re-enter it. It's just super unfortunate that this is exactly triggered just that entry, and then it went backwards, right? So, for all intents and purposes, shit happens, guys. It's just how it's going to be. Um, Overall, though, pretty good with the analysis. It's just these impulse moves I did not see happening, right? Maybe if it would have been um, better off to go somewhere off these peaks, just slightly lower. If that would have been the case, let's say there and the stop loss just slightly higher above these peaks, that would have been okay because it's almost a triple top, even though it's going slightly lower each time. That would have been a better entry. But, it is what it is, right? I predicted something else and it just did not happen the way I thought. That's all. But again, the move happened, just not where I wanted entry to be. So I'll delete this and we won't bring it up again. Judging from where it's at here, it went very steep. MACD kind of recovered on the way there, but if we grab an RSI, I'll just pop in an RSI index right here just so we have a good understanding of where that is, and I'll minimize the MACD. Right, so where this is at right now, it's slightly above oversold. Would have been a great opportunity to get in somewhere here near the bottom because you see lots of volatility there. And as this was going up, this was going sideways. So right there is a divergence, and then it started to drop. Okay. Either way, not a trade I'm going to be looking to take. CHF actually should be much stronger over the next little while. There has been news that they're going to be increasing interest rates further. AUD/JPY, beautiful move way back here in May. So at this point in time, I'll just get rid of it. This move did not happen at all as expected, so that's a wash. But that was already last week anyway. It didn't quite happen as expected. And now we're going to be dropping lower. So JPY seems to be gaining a little bit of strength right now. Okay. From the play here, this is what I can see happening in the short term, right? So let's go low to high on the fib retracement. And right now it just crossed that 50% line. So it looks like it wants to test this volume rich area here. Right, so what we'll do is just go low to high, and I bet you it's going to be hanging around there. Yep. So that's where we have the majority of volume. I'll just draw a ray, and there we go. Okay, and not really much extreme zones. It's all kind of clumped together in this area. So the fib lines will be good indicators, anywhere between 618 and 786. That's where the bulk of it all is. So judging how this is playing out, JPY has some temporary strength when they increase interest rates. I'd pop entry around here for a buy, right? And a pretty reasonable stop loss on this one. I would say 75 pips, larger than I normally want to go, but this is going to be more of a couple of weeks trade possibly, and if it hits TP earlier, then great. But hitting somewhere around that almost 700 pip mark will be a good ratio, a 9-to-1. For this trade. So again, EMA shifts is what I'd be looking for, and this is what I'm talking about, right? On the 4-hour, if I see this drop all the way and then I have a shift of red and yellow and they cross each other here, that will be more my speed to take this trade. And I'll set my alerts later. So yeah, we'll keep that green. AUD NZD, not interested. AUD USD, not interested. Like I said before, it was super close to getting, and it would have been a perfect trade right at TP, and then it went down, right? So it is what it is, right? Could have been a very nice, quick trade, but it's done. I'll just move this over here. It would have been a nice win, but it was not. This was a beautiful trade. Still love that 32 to 33 to 1. Yeah. Anyway, nothing that I can see right now as far as taking another position on this. Um, yeah, Bitcoin, as predicted, this is going lower. I'll get rid of the volume. Okay, so it dropped pretty hard over the last 2 weeks, and it's just hovering around this area, right? So as you can see, if we take the fib, and again, we draw it up from here and where it hit its peak in that little move, it's hovering around that 618 zone, right? So for it to actually come up and break through any sort of specific area might be a little bit of a different story to tell, but I like the 6 hour for Bitcoin anyway. Um, yeah, it's just chilling out right here. I would say a good opportunity to take a buy, maybe long term. I still unfortunately see Bitcoin going lower, and yeah, so I wouldn't be taking any trades on a buy unless it crosses about 18,500. Yeah, not a great situation for crypto. CAD CHF. Unfortunately, I was expecting another pop up back here. Again, I covered this last week too, right? So just a couple of near misses in June, unfortunately. Like, this is just some bad moves, I guess, right? Like, this gigantic spike downwards would have been beautiful if it just happened a couple of pips higher, right? So I was expecting it to climb up another 50 or so pips before dropping. That didn't happen. It just shot down hard. Oh well, moving on. We'll close that one off. This trade is done. And CAD JPY. Impulse already happened here. It's going back up. And let's see how it's been playing out. So the last move, let me click on that. Last move from bottom to top, it just pinned off the 618. So, again, bottom to top, what kind of move did we see? When it hit here, the 58% or 50%, and then up it goes. And then if we go from this bottom to that, so it it's a 6 hour. Sorry, I'm using the wrong time frame, but either way, it's still same sort of area. So now here, if I grab those EMAs, right? So they're just about to switch. I'll just zoom in on the chart so it's a little bit more clear. Okay, so as the yellow crosses the red, this will be a nice area for entry. It's been consolidating for a little bit, but the larger EMA lines are still very strongly pointing upwards. So this is still a very solid trade to take on a buy. And again, EMA shift is where entry will be here, right? Every EMA shift on the 4 hour always makes a pretty decent TP anyway over the last few weeks, right? So here, for example, EMA shift, it dropped nicely, would have been right here. Off that, it would have grabbed a potential almost 400 pips, right? But probably at the end of this candle and where that formed the MES, and then you see another doji like that. After dojis is kind of my first sign of getting out of the trade, especially if it happens on the opposite way down. So if it kind of does a pop up and then has a doji or a morning star, evening star, then I would continue if it's within my direction. Like, this is a beautiful setup for it to go lower, right? I would have stayed in that. But either way, I didn't. This is beginning of June anyway. I didn't analyze for that drop, right? Like, this was very strong continuation. And if we take a look at the long term, right? If we draw that fib from the last move here to the high, right, you can see just off that 618 and crossing the white EMA beautifully. Like, that would have been a fantastic entry. Anyway, moving on, CAD CHF JPY. Trade is over from May. That was long gone and done, so I'm going to remove that now. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things where if you stayed in the trade, it definitely would have worked out nicely. The trouble is that EMA shift, right? We don't know how low it was going to go, but since there was another one, it was a strong potential jump right back in. So this trade right now you know, has the potential of being the longest running that I analyze right now. The only trouble is the stop loss was very high, right? So if it would have been an analysis, something like that, it would be pretty nuts, right? A 50 to 1 trade. But it was at about a 60 pip, 61 pip stop loss. So either way, I'm going to close this trade down, right? This is where the exit would have been. Okay, and like I said, EMA shift, gone and done. Wonderful. So it would have been probably at the end of that candle. So 690 pips and 11 to 1, still a good win. All right. Now, as we're going right here, let's see. This impulse move probably did not even cross the 32%. Oh, it just did. Okay, so very strong move upwards, especially with those parallel candles that we see, right? If we take it here from that lowest point and draw it up, you know, it hit off that 328 already, and it's very likely going to keep climbing. So strong potential to get in on another buy here. With a stop loss, a tighter stop loss. It already kind of hit the bottom. It's not going to retest from what I can tell. 30 pips stop loss for it to kind of hit. Yeah, could potentially see that happening again. To play it safe, you can go 275, right, for a 9.5 to 1. That would be a pretty decent trade right here if it pops back down. I don't see it popping back down. I have a feeling entry is going to be something like that. You know, maybe 50 pip stop loss for a 200 pip gain. You know, three, maybe a 4 to 1. It's just a quick trade right now during the middle of the week. I can see that happening. Ethereum, like Bitcoin, it's going to be messy. It's been consolidating over the last few days. Euro AUD, the only thing that I can see right here is this institutional move right there. If it drops back to that, great. If not, then nothing lost, right? So I'd be looking for an entry around that. Oh, geez, let me grab my long position right there. That is what I'd be looking at. 50 pip, maybe a 60 pip stop loss just in case, you know, bottom of the wick right there. And potential to go higher, grabbing about 300 or so. So almost a 5 to 1, right? EuroCAD, it is rejecting off that same area a third time, right? So we already had one win here. Another potential win, right? If you got out at that EMA switch on the first time, it started becoming very messy, right? So it wasn't definite that 368, so it wasn't a 9 to 1, but it easily could have been, you know, another 200 pip grab, right? So 200 out of 40, so that's a 5 to 1 ratio right there. Where it's at right now, look, as it's been bouncing, right? It just goes below that line and then slightly higher the next time, then slightly higher again, now slightly higher. Look, it's rejecting off that red Fibonacci line that I have right there. So very strong potential that it can continue happening. I would draw the stop loss just a little bit below it. And since we didn't cross a new high there, I'm going to say, you know, short-term trade, maybe, you know what, let's do a fib retracement going this way from high to low. That'll be a better idea. So best case scenario will be somewhere there, 174 for a 21 pip stop loss. That's an 8 to 1 still, very good potential short-term trade. Yeah, the only reason it makes me nervous to actually take sells on this is, first of all, you can see my channel overall is on a buy, right? Extremely long term, but it hasn't been making new lows. Like, it's hit the same similar area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, okay? And it hasn't dropped lower, so it really is a strong rejection around this point. Buy would be a much better idea than a sell in this situation. Even though the larger EMAs are pointing down, it's been in a channel and it's not showing any interest in going lower. Okay, and I'll switch that over to green. There we go. Euro CHF, this gigantic imbalance needs filling. Whether it happens this week or next, time will tell. Get rid of those. Those are invalid now. Okay, so time will tell on this one. Overall, long term is definitely sell, so this would be something I'd be looking to grab. And as far as it's going to look right here, let's see what the stop loss would be at. 80 pips, maybe not that high. Let's go, I'll probably make it around the 60 pip mark again. It seems a pretty reasonable amount to grab. And then 5.7, I have a feeling it's going to drop lower, but the safe bet is to go on the previous low, right, in case it does 2 pins. Moving on, Euro GBP, this is just way too messy. It is slowly going up, but entry, it's, you know, the closer it gets to the white, that would be a better option, but this is just, I don't like the looks of that. Euro JPY. I made a comment in my Discord, actually, that it made a triple top right here. Right, so you can see 1, 2, 3. Right, so right when that happens, I'm like, it's definitely going to be going on a sell, and sure enough, it did. Right, so just to prove my point, you know, here's the Discord, triple top formed. This is the picture that I took. This is what I predicted would happen. Maybe popped up one more time, but it was definitely going to be going down. Okay, and since I drew it from there, that pop-up just happened a little bit sooner. So no problem. Let's move back. Right, so what was I saying? That pop, here it is, and down it went. Right, so beautiful opportunity for a sell entry, and right now, if that was taken, it would be about 250 pips in profit. Stop loss for me at that point would have been about 30. Just because of where the tops formed, I wouldn't be expecting it to break that going forward. But it is what it is, right? So as you can see, though, it's rejecting off that white EMA twice. So it's entirely possible that it's just going to come right back up to this zone. So yeah, I mean, if that was the case, if I saw that strong rejection off that white EMA again, probably would have been exiting at the end of the candle, maybe even sooner if it was on the 1 hours, right? So yeah. Saw the rejection. You could see clearly on the 1 hour, that's the 987 line, rejected off that, and now it's slowly going up, right? So EMA's almost shifted on the 1 hour. Either way, this is something I'd be looking to potentially exit if I was still in. Okay, so I'm not even gonna draw a line up there, just wanted to show that this was a potential for a good sell opportunity. Euro NZD. It is going up, but it's too messy to find a proper entry. These wicks are just too long for me. I'm going to move on. Euro USD. Again, you know, kind of went the right way, just at the wrong time. So, yeah, wasn't really expecting that move that quickly. So this is invalid at this point. That's gone. And we almost formed a triple bottom here. Pardon the yawn, sorry, it's almost midnight. Okay, so it would have been here, here, here. Good potential for buys, but overall this pair is going down. You know, we haven't really had much of an impulse move going low, higher recently. So if we switch it over to the daily, right, everything's just been dropping for the euro. And there needs to be a little bit of a point of recovery because it's done 9 impulse moves so far moving down, and it's not really showing any sign of lightening up. It did, like I said, it did form the triple bottom. I'm not drawing a new wave just because it formed a high, right? So if we do draw that wave, it's going to be on a buy, so it would be this way, right? And let's see which one's lower. Oh, it's so hard to say, but this one is lower. And yeah, we have to make a new high, otherwise we're invalidating that move. But that's so far what it looks like it's going to be happening. GBP AUD. See, this is why I don't like AUD pairs. Look at this disgusting thing. Let's flip that over to the 4 hour. Okay, right now I don't really see a decent entry. Like, it's just consolidating around this area. Like, again, I'll show you volume profile. will just go from here all the way to where it's at now. I'll guarantee, yeah, exactly where I predicted it would have been, right? So that is where we have the majority of currency being held. Not interested at all to take this pair. Just going to move on. GBP CAD, similar story, right? Like we formed a double bottom now, so strong potential for it to start moving upward, but not like completely switching its trajectory. Although if you take a look at the day, it was the weekly, I think, that drew this up. Look at this, right? These thick blue lines, every time it hits that, it starts to rebound upwards. So now this has kind of made its full move, and it's got a very strong chance of rebounding upwards in the next little while. These moves are sharp, and the climbs typically take, let's see, 130 days. I don't really feel like holding a pair for 3 months, but yeah, definite potential to be able to take buys around this area, right? For it to climb possible 2,000 tips. So use your judgment on that one. It's been 4 times over the last 6 years that these similar drops have happened, and I don't see why this would be any exception for it not to continue on the way that it did in the past. Okay, GBP CHF. It is going to be dropping. Is there any potential for it to pull up to this area? There's potential. I don't see that happening, to be honest with you, though. Like GBP has been much weaker as of late. GBP JPY, right? Similar ideas. They're bouncing off of these areas and possibly going higher, but they're not making newer highs. So I'd be cautious trying to take some swings on this. GBP NZD, definitely not interested. USD. Not a pair that I'm particularly fond of taking trades on. NZD CAD, nope. CHF, it just looks like some stairs. NZD JPY. Oh, this is interesting. This probably would have been a good potential for an entry, but it's not making lower lows. It looks like it's kind of rejecting off maybe that fib line. Where did I draw that before? Yeah, it already did its 618. Now pulled back, didn't go make a new high. Yeah, it's very likely this is just going to be a continuation now. NZD-JPY seems entirely likely. All right, even if I switch to the 1 hour, for example, here's what I see. Okay, here is my favorite institutional setup, right? And I'm just going to draw a ray. I'm not going to draw this all the way across. So 50% from that is here. And I'll just draw this one as white. Okay, beautiful. Let's get rid of that box. Okay, and boom, look at where it bounced off of. Right, so a few days ago, this would have been the perfect trade to enter on July 1st. And yeah, I just see this going at least up to this white line, like at a minimum. Right, so that's a pretty decent 227 pip climb over the next few days. Yeah, that would have been a nice entry. Have I done my charts earlier this week? Oh well. NZD USD. Unfortunately, nothing similar to that setup. This is kind of the line it's playing off of. And judging from what's happened before, it rejected, it bounced off, it consolidated, bounced off, then it broke through. Now it's consolidating on the opposite end. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing something like this. If it does bounce and then finally dropping it lower. USD will be raising their rates again near the end of July. So possibly until then, USD could potentially just see some pullbacks before dropping hard. All right, USD CAD. What do we have here? The trade that's gone and done kind of earlier in June. Before I delete them, I should probably take stock of how many pips that were snagged and how many were lost. So But you know, it doesn't matter. I have the last chart saved anyway, so we'll delete that because now it's July. And we'll get rid of this. All right, as far as taking entry here, I don't really see a clear-cut way to grab it. It looks like it might be going to the buy, but it's been dropping, let's see, on the lower time frames for sure. On the higher, it's kind of consolidating a little bit, rejected off that white EMA, but forming lower highs as we go. So if we take fib, right, draw it up, we see it's 618 was right there. Same thing from 618 to the newer low. It just broke through it, but still in the golden zone before dropping. So this seems very likely that it wants to push a little lower, quite possibly for another week or two. We'll see how that goes. Right, EMA shift just happened, so it's a very good potential to enter the trade with a stop loss just above the previous close, the previous close's wick, right? So for example, if you want to take a sell on here, so just to be clear, this is what I mean by EMA shift. This is what I'd be looking to take a trade on, okay? So I would draw it up here, right? So entry right where this guy is, and stop loss just above that previous close. And where do we see rejection going, right? Let's see, if we take a trend-based fib extension there, exactly to where I have it set, so maybe 100 pip, maybe a little bit more gain. So it's still a 5.5 to 1, right? Because it's only a 20 pip stop loss. So yeah, that is my potential short-term trade idea for USD CAD. Let's keep that green, see where it goes. USD CHF. All right, I drew this up a long time ago. I was kind of banking on this area of rejection, and it's exactly what happened. It's starting to bull up a little bit. Again, no clear patterns right now to look for. It would just be EMA shift, and the shift already happened, and then it pulled back. Sorry. Sorry, another big yawn. But from what I can see right now, I have a feeling that this is going to be the area of play that it pulls up to before dropping lower. So let's, set that up right now ahead of time. 68 pips, quite large to grab. And let's say we go all the way back down here to the brown. 4.7, even if we go a little lower, right? 5 to 1 is a pretty decent trade idea for the short term. USD JPY shifted going down, but again, it's not really going that far. Not really interested in that one. All right, silver. Silver dropped to $19.87 per ounce. That is a significant drop over the last few weeks, right? So we had in May, it was already at 25, so it dropped $6. Oh, it was higher than that. 26.19. So it dropped just within 2 months. 26%. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to go that low, right? Like that's why I drew this up in the fib, but it dropped lower and kept going. So as far as that's concerned, it's looking very similar to Bitcoin, isn't it? Anyway, gold, some of the same. Get rid of that. Too volatile to take. Although right here it's showing that it keeps bouncing off that pink EMA and going a little lower. So right now where there's a spike, right, and even on the 4-hour, what I see happening, right, it's close and making parallel candles each time. So every time there's a giant green, a giant red forms on the 4-hour. Yeah, so I might be looking for another big green candle and then take a sell. Seems to be the pattern. Oh my God, I better go to sleep soon. All right, XTI, here we go. Drew this up a few times. And yeah, I was able to take a couple short-term trades. I think I snagged it around here because I was able to notice that it's going to be rejecting, so I just grabbed that candle. I was playing it off of a 15-minute at that point too, right? So if we switch over to the 15-minute, let's I'll show you what trades that I was able to grab. Okay. The first one was, let's see, right here. When I saw the drop that happened there, I was expecting a pullback to that area, right? So I ended up taking a trade around that 103,500, and I just rode it up until I had a EMA shift, right? So it was from about here to here, right? So 2,500 pips. That was a pretty decent snag. Again, I could have held it a little longer, grabbed that 4,000, but that wouldn't be following my rules. So EMA shifted, got out. All right, so 2,500 pips was a pretty good snag. Then I re-entered actually when I saw this climbing up, and after this one closed, it was just before the shift up. But then, I was able to grab when I finished this green one and this kind of popped up and started dropping. I was able to grab another 6. Where was it? No, it was about 1,000 pips that I grabbed, so it must have been on the way down here, right? As it dropped, I kind of closed that out again. And then there was one more. I believe it was a sell that I took, and it was right here where I saw it popping up and then a big candle closing down. So then I grabbed it. It was only about 600 pips, so nothing too major. Well, 60 pips, I guess, if we want to go that route. Right, so not too bad. Like this one was a 4-to-1 for me. The other one was a 2-to-1. This one was a 1-to-1. Like it was just I like to go between 600 and 700 points, so 60 to 70 pips worth of stop loss for oil, and that seems to work out, right? Like I don't want to take it too deep unless, of course, it is it just made a low. That's the only time I'll be like, okay, if it jumped in there and then we saw closing and opening around the same area here, right? So let's say, for example, draw a ray, I said, right there. Okay, so good potential areas for entry would be around the same spots. So if it pops up, stop loss goes to break even, and if it breaks through, oh well. Okay. So that's kind of how I play it on the short term. All right, so finally NASDAQ. I'll just pop this one on the daily and see what we got in store. These crazy impulses, they just won't go where they need to go, right? So 3 is actually here. This is the low that was made. I'll just shift this over slightly. Right? Again, I'm still expecting it to pop up. It's just incredibly stubborn at this point. Every time that it has a couple of decent runs, it tanks a day or two after that, right? But here is the situation that we're running into. So again, we had this move up, and then the shift up, look, 618, exactly where it touched, and then it started dropping. So it's very frustrating because this, in the long term, needs to come up to here before we see a larger drop, because nothing ever in history just continued for weeks and weeks straight being red like this. Like, look at this. We've had since, I guess the last decent pullback we had was end of March. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 red weeks and 2 greens in the span of 3 months, right? So that is pretty bad. It hasn't been as bad as this since almost the Great Depression, actually, when we're talking about the Dow. But even the Dow isn't as bad as NASDAQ right now. Right, you saw that parallel shift, but it will be dropping harder. It will be dropping harder. So this would be probably, let's see, what's a good trajectory to be able to predict? Let's say the low of COVID to the high right there. Right now we're just at the 328. I'm expecting, again, if we're talking proper pullbacks, this is going to be the area where we're going to see the next big drop too. So that is about 5,000 points. But anyway, I'll dive into that on the... No, you know what? I'm not going to do a chart review this week. It's a shortened week. And again, everything kind of stands. You just saw NASDAQ. There's really no sense to jump into stocks, especially the big guys, because nothing in my long-term strategy has changed in regards to that. Short term, it's very small gains. If you're able to take sell options or put options, oh my God, stop yawning. If you're able to take put options, then that would probably be the way to start looking at trades in the short term, because we will officially announce a recession probably end of the year. As it's starting to come out of it. That's kind of how governments work. Hey, the solution is to print more money. That always works. That's actually the cause of inflation, because the money is getting worthless. So I might actually start doing some videos in regards to what to do in these situations, like what to jump in on next. And I'm going to be working with a financial advisor so we can actually give some proper advice to those that are looking for it, right? Rather than trying to find the TikTok videos of those snippets of people just saying, oh, do this, so this will make you some money in the short term. That's not a tangible solution. Okay, so sit tight, folks. Don't fret. Keep your chin up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Whatever other euphemism you want me to use, type it in the chat. Sorry, the comments. I'm used to Discord. And yeah, hopefully this has helped you and possibly taken some trade ideas for next week or the weeks to come. All right, so take care, everybody. See you next time.